The next presentation will show us how we can use Spring Boot in our daily DevOps work. And as you can probably figure out, it's also the first one with a hands-on. Presenting is Nicolas Frankel, senior consultant at Hybris Software, with a broad experience in Java and Java EE and Spring, working with lots of companies in various fields. He's also excited to teach others. He's an architect, university teacher, book author, and so let's give a hand to Nicolas. Also, I want to point out something regarding this app I showed you earlier. You can also use it to give a feedback and some stars to our presenters. You can do it after the presentation or maybe during our breaks.
If you do it before, it works also.
For encouragement.
It works.
You have the stage.
Thanks. Hello everyone. Ce faci? No. Ce faceți, pisicuților? Sunt Nicolas Frankel, and that's all that I can say in Romanian, besides sunt o capciuna, which basically is very hard to use in this context, and bad words, which I will avoid because I'm recorded right now. So thanks to be here for this session about Spring Boot and DevOps. So as our moderators told you, I do a lot of stuff. I'm more like a geek. I work for a company, a little startup called SAP. Who knows about SAP? Okay, good. I work on the Hybris platform as a consultant. So the Hybris platform is an e-commerce platform based on Java and Spring, so I do a lot of Java, I do a lot of Spring. And basically my job is to help people, customers, to integrate the Hybris platform into their information system. So, this talk is about Spring Boot, and you might think, what is that about? Because the guy is about Spring Boot and DevOps. So, does Spring Boot help you doing collaboration, talking to your ops people where you are devs? Not really, it's just a framework. Is it like Puppet, Chef, and this kind of stuff? Not likely. Can we automate everything with Spring Boot? Likewise, not related to DevOps. So in this scope, in this talk, I will like limit myself to 3 different kind of information that we can get from your application. Metadata, else checkups, and metrics. But before, a little story. We recognize the picture. Yeah, but it doesn't end well, so it's not a super nice story. It's just to set the mood. So you are a developer, everything is perfect, you've done your job perfectly well. It's Thursday, now you want to publish your application in production. So it's Thursday, it's not Friday, you never push on Friday, remember? So you call the ops guy and you tell him, hey, I'm ready for pushing to production. So the guy asks you, okay, it's not Friday, it's a go, but do you have a documentation so that I can install the stuff? And because you are an experienced guy, yeah, you have the documentation and you provide it to him. Checked. Okay, but if something bad happens, do you have a documentation that if I get this in the log, I should do that? And again, because you are an experienced developer, you can provide it because you already wrote it. Second check. Okay, but now how do you monitor, how can I monitor the application? How do you monitor your application? Well, that's the problem. You never developed anything for monitoring the application because it was not part of the specification. It's a non-functional requirement. The customer didn't write it, so you didn't do it. So at this point, you have three different solutions. First solution, you go to your project manager and you beg him for more budget. If it works, he will or she will give you more budget, but you can say goodbye to your bonus, because basically it's never a good thing to get back to your project manager to ask for money. Second solution, you deal with the project manager to push the app to production nonetheless, because the ops guy has just to obey because the project manager has more influence. The problem is, if something bad happens in that case, you will be the one called during the night. It's not really great. The third option is, it's Thursday, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you have 3 days to code something. And it's happened to me that I was caught in this situation, and none of the three options are really great. I mean, I want my bonus, I don't want to get woken up in the night, and I don't want to code all of the weekend for my job. I want to code for myself. And now there is this little stuff called non-functional requirements. And non-functional requirements are likewise never stated in the application. When the customer sends you the specification, he never writes, or very rarely writes about performance. He never writes about that you should persist your data in the database, because, I mean, it's part of your job. Likewise, he doesn't write about the fact that your application should be monitored. And it's up to you to do it on your own. And of course, you have to make him pay for that, because it costs money. So you have else checks, you have metrics, but also, sometimes it happens that you might want to have additional information on your application, like if you are, who here is a Spring user? Not so many people, perhaps 10 people. Spring, okay, 12. No, okay. Okay, who here is a Spring user? Much better. So third of the room. Who here is a Spring Boot user? Okay, nearly the same, but a bit less. So it happens if you are using Spring Boot that or even Spring, that you don't know which beans are part of your application context. So you want to know it. Or if you have mappings on your controller, sometimes they overlap each other. That's not good. You want to have a view of all the mapping. And so far you had nothing. Spring Boot can give you all of that. So let's start with metadata. Metadata is very simple. It's the most stupid stuff that you can think about. What is this application? Ever happened to you? You enter a new context, a new customer, you go to a screen, and you want to know what is the source of the application. What is the application? What is the version of your deployed application? Who has this issue? Nobody? 1, 2, 3 people? Okay. What I do generally, I create a property file that I source it with Mvm Package, and then I read it at runtime. This gives me the version, but it's very repetitive. It's not very interesting. So, who wants a demo? Good. For the guys who don't want, you are breaking my talk. That's not nice. Okay, so here I will use something called the Pet Clinic. Pet Clinic application is a very simple application made in Spring Boot that is available on GitHub. And basically, what you can do with the Pet Clinic is, you see the little cutie kitty and the dog. Oh, I already have an issue. I have an issue. Hey, you gotta love the demo syndrome. Let's start again and hope that it's not forever, otherwise it's not that important anyway. Okay, I know what the issue is. It breaks my demo, but anyway, I will do it like that. Spring Pet Clinic, Mvm Package. So it will be the application, and I want to remove all the tests and skip tests. It's just that the demo will be nicer, but in the end it changes nothing. Yeah, much better. So you have a home page, you can search for owner of the pets, then you can check the detail, you can edit it, then you can check for veterinarians, you have a like XML view of all veterinarians, you can check that also the error stuff works, so you can check that the exceptions is really good. I mean, it's a small application. And let's think that I want to monitor this application. So at this point, if you have to remember one thing about this talk, it's that one. You go to the POM and you add a dependency called the actuator. So one thing, the actuator, the Spring Boot actuator. So now if I restart the application, and I will use Postman to execute REST requests. So here, for example, I've got a mapping called beans, and it tells me all the beans in my Spring Boot context. So here you have this servlet mapping description provider, which has got Skingleton, which is type blah, 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 and which is declared into this resource. You can have stuff that's as dependency log, that this one is dependent on the server properties. So even if you are just a developer, if you just want to debug stuff, this is very useful. Another one, for example, might be the mapping one. So here, as I told you, here you've got all the mapping that you have in your application. It's pretty useful. So actuator health, for example. So now, back to the real DevOps stuff. I want to know some stuff about my application, and I go to the info endpoint. And so far, since I didn't create explicitly any info, this is empty. This is not super useful. So what we can do is we can add more information. So here I will add a new information. And I will compile it. And now if I too quick, oh, it doesn't work. I love it. It doesn't work because I forgot to use the info prefix. And now if I run it again and leave it some time for it, and now I've got information. This is static information. That is not very interesting, but it's still a start. What we can do better is we can add more information, something that we get from the application itself. Let's say, for example, I will have my application, and I will have, let's say, the group ID that I get from Maven. So here, normally you would write something like that if you do any Maven filtering. But what we can do is, because everything is set for us, we can use the project.group ID stuff. And it has to be written like that. And the last one will be the version. So basically, I will be, well, I won't, but I ask Spring to read the data from the pom.xml and then to make it available afterwards. So that's the version of my deployed application. That's super useful. However, it doesn't stop there. What we can do is use something that is already out of the box. And basically, we will use the plugin called the build plugin. And now I have to stop it and restart it, unfortunately. No, I have to do more. So I have to do Mvm package and restart it. So I will get one more property file that will be created. So workspace, no, were private, Spring Pet Clinic. Classes. And normally here, I've got the build directly here. So this is just because I asked for more detail, and now when I compile my stuff, when I package my stuff, it creates a meta-inf build info.property. So if I go there, you will see this build info properties. We can even go further and ask for even more details. So now it should be like this, build plus. Configuration is not there, so it should be there. And if I restart it, too quick. So here I've got all the information that I've asked, like the version of Java that was used, the encoding, and blah, blah, blah. So this is quite useful. Okay, Git information now. Now we can add an additional plugin. And again, what I will do is something like that, and I will restart it afterwards. So you see here that the new plugin has started during the build, and it outputs a lot of additional information. I have this Git property stuff. And Git properties give me all those information that I can see there. Like, this is not important anymore, but you see here that I have just a limited set of information. Not everything is present, because by default, probably I don't need everything. But if you want everything in all cases, you can just go there and ask for info, and it must be like mode, and you can say full, and if you restart again, then now I have got everything that I asked for. So everything that is present in the Git properties, you can find it here. You can find information that you don't need, but at least you have everything that you want. Okay? So this is the info endpoints, and already it gives you a lot, and it takes like 5 minutes for configuration. I coded nothing. If you want to code, because it's always possible, you can code your own. And let's say I will create a new package. manage. And I can create a new class, and I can say that it's an info configuration. So what you can do is you create an add configuration class, and then you can write info contributor. So if you, who here is at ease with Java 8 lambdas? Okay, nearly half the room, so if you are hype, you can use lambda like that. So basically you can add dynamic information, and for example, the kind of dynamic information would be on what node you are running, which is pretty useful. This is the kind of information that you cannot write in the application.properties, but you need it to get at runtime. So I don't know, it's, so far I will just write that, and current time millis, because I'm super lazy. But basically, my point is you can get any kind of information that is dynamic and not only static. Where is it again? It doesn't go to the end. So here, I can find the information here. And this is a dynamic code, so you can have it really on every different node, you can have different information. My second point is about the else checks. I mean, it's 2018. It's not normal that the customer calls us to tell us that our application is down. That's not acceptable. We should really do something against that. And the else check is also an endpoint, and basically a health check wraps a dependency. What is a dependency? Well, the worst dependency is a database. Probably you are using databases. You can use the file system. File system is a dependency. Like if the file system is full, probably you are in trouble. What also is dependency? If you call a web service, the calling of a web service is a dependency. Every time a dependency is down, probably your app is down, or at least you should be alerted that something is wrong. For every else check, Spring Boot will return either up, that works, or down, it doesn't work. I mean, you have other statuses, but those are the two most important. And you can also provide details. If it's down, for example, you can provide the exception type. That's always useful. Afterwards, the health endpoint aggregates everything, and if at least one of your health checks is down, then it means that the app is down. And it will inform you, likewise with a nice JSON payload, or also with HTTP status. So if it's fine, then you will get 200, and if it's not fine, then you will get 50 something. So let's implement it and create our own stuff. So by default, I change nothing, and I already have the else check in place. And as you can see, it tells me that my application is up and it's 200. It's great. But let's suppose you want more details. This is quite like a sensitive topic. It's a security issue. So either you must authenticate, and I don't want to go into that stuff, or you want every time with detail. So in that case, you will say else check, and you say always. Now if I build again, I will get hopefully more details. Here I've got more details. By default, we see that our application, or my application, has two dependencies. One of them is a file system, which basically is the disk space, and it tells me that I have enough disk space at the moment. And the other one is a database, which is basically a HSQLDB database, in-memory database. It cannot go down, obviously, but still it tells me about it, which is good. Now, let's try to add one more dependency. let's try to have a Solar dependency. So let's say that our application depends on Solar. We add a new dependency in our application, but we don't have the infrastructure for that. So basically it will be down every time because it will check for something that is absent. Let's wait for some seconds. It's a bit slow. It doesn't want to work. Here, now my application is down. Why? Because I have one more dependency, the Solar one, and Solar is down. And because this is down, even if your ops tools is not able to parse the payload, then you still have the status code, the HTTP status code that tells you that something is fishy. So that's quite good. Let's remove it again because it will be super bad otherwise. And let's create our own, because if you want to be like dependent of a web service, there is nothing out of the box for that, so we'll create our own health check. Else configuration. Again, let's use Java 8, very easy. So we return a health status, which is a Fluent builder, and we can give in detail. Now, if I compile it again, well, I didn't remove Sonar yet, but so I can see that I'm up, and here I have the detail. Of course, you can also try with down, and let's pass in an exception. I don't know. Let's say a new illegal state exception. Hello here. Something bad happened. And I have it here. So it's very easy to wrap your own dependencies that cannot be inferred by Spring Boot in a few lines of code. Okay, now what I will be doing is the last bit, the metrics. Metrics. So you told me that not many people use Spring Boot, but who here used Spring Boot 1.5 with the actuator already? 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, in Spring Boot 2.0, it changed a lot on the metrics side. All the rest is exactly the same, but the metrics stuff has completely changed. Now, they have taken all the code, changed it, and put it in a dedicated framework. So even if you don't use Spring Boot, you can use the framework. It's called Micromethod. Micromethod, it's available on micromethod.io, and if you are using Spring Boot 1.5, you can use it. There is a backport. The Micrometer framework architecture provides you with an API and with many available backends. Basically, in general, you have all the backends that you need of your own infrastructure. Like if you are using Graphite, you have it. If you are using Grafana, you have it. Prometheus, whatever. The entry point into the metrics framework, the Micrometer framework, is a class named Meter Registry. It's available as a dependency, so you can already inject it out of the box. And that's not what I wanted to show. So now let's get some demo working. I want to restart the application. And I will want to go to the metrics endpoint. Let's wait a few seconds because I don't like when it's not. Yes, it's here. So those are all the available metrics. If you are familiar with Spring Boot 1.5, something is missing there. The thing that is missing is the value itself. In Spring Boot 1.5, there was a page with all the metrics and all the values. Why has it changed? Because now the metrics are multidimensional. For example, let's take one of those metrics. Requests is the one I want to see. Oops. It's not very good. Requests. Not this one. Not this one. Not this one. Where is the last one? Okay, anyway. Catch it. I don't find the right one. Perhaps I should refresh this, and then perhaps I can ask for, no, not save, not save, send. Okay, and now I have request HTTP. Yes, this one. So now if I go on the detail of this one, I've got not one value, I've got multidimensional value. And as you can see, it's an aggregated value of different tags. So for example, I have the measurement, so I have 33 counts of requests. So my app has been like requested 33 times, but then it's dispatched among the not found, the hoops, the owner find, and everything. And then it's also dispatched between the values of 404, 500, and 20. So if I want to have more details, just like that, I can ask for the tag like URI not found or status 404, for example. And now you see that I've got only 27 on 404. So this is an aggregate value, and you can go into the detail and have this directly into your monitoring system. If you want to see, like, I don't know who is using JConsole, the GMX stuff from Java. 1, 2, okay. Let's have a quick look then. Before it was super easy to get the metrics into the JConsole. Well, now it's also very easy to get them. The problem is, for example, here, you've got all the metrics name that I also have in the HTTP. It's exactly the same list. But you cannot call this metric with the name and the tag list into the JConsole itself, because here it requires a list, and I have no way to type list into this field. So it's not that great. However, what we can do is here I have launched the Prometheus endpoints. So we can find something already here. And we can have these HTTP server requests, for example, this one. So there is no data point, so that was not the good one. HTTP server requests. Let's say counts. Again, not the right one. I always have the issue with this one. So this is the Prometheus stuff, and I will try to find a good one. I will send more metrics to it. If it works, finally. So let's do some F5. HTTP. Let's do something else, because obviously, okay, every metric now doesn't work anymore. It's so fun. Demo syndrome again. I know what I forgot. I forgot to add the dependency to Prometheus. Thanks for helping me, guys. I felt a bit alone. Okay, now if I go to the pet clinic, Mvm package again. Now I restart. It's always a big risk to do some demo, but in general it pays off in the end. If I have help from the audience. Okay, so now let's create some metrics. And normally here I should have something called the Prometheus endpoint. This is what Prometheus will be scraping. So Prometheus is configured to scrap this page at regular intervals and to get the metrics out of it. So now if I go on HTTP underscore request per second, here, this one for example, and now I do it here, yes it exists now, and I have the metric. Well, it's empty, I have nothing at all until I scale it down, and now I have some information about it. So this is by default, I did nothing, I just added the Prometheus dependency and I already have that out of the box, which is quite interesting. And you see that all the information that I had before about the request, like the status 304, the 200, but you reroute, and of course I can hide some of them, and then I've got different kind of information, of course, somehow. Okay. Now let's code our own. So I will create one more configuration class called, just for information, the power plug doesn't work, so I'm 27%. Sorry for that. So the metrics configuration, for example, I will create it one more time, and I want to create my own metric. So basically there are different kind of metrics in Spring Boot, in Micrometer. The first one is the counter. The counter is a value that can only stay the same or go up every time. So if I write counter here, and I should import it, I have a dummy counter, and as I told you, the entry point is a meta registry, so you create a new counter with this name, you increment it by a definite amount, you increment it more, and then in the end, normally you should be able to go to Prometheus, to Prometheus, and then write dummy counter total. Yes. And you see that it's 10, because what I did is I incremented by 1, then by 3, then by 1, then by 5, it makes 10. That's how it works. I can also create metrics which value are uncorrelated from one call to another. For example, the page load speed. Page load speed is completely different from one call to another. So in Micrometer parlance, this is called a gauge. So I can create a gauge. I create a bin which gives me a random value, and afterwards I will create a gauge which takes a random and asks for the next int between 0 and 10, 10 excluded. And I register into the registry. And here, I already showed you two different ways to create new metrics. The one is you have the registry.something, and the second one is on the interface you've got a builder, and then you have the method register into the registry. So you have different ways of building stuff. The builder is in general much more flexible, so I would encourage you to use it. And now I will wait until it's restarted. It should have been restarted. So now I can go on Prometheus, ask for dummy gauge, and check if it works. Dummy. So I have this dummy gauge here. And if I check, here, I can put the dummy gauge and execute it. And you can see that, as expected, it goes between 0 and 9. And of course, this is completely useless, but this is just something to demo. You might wonder why here I created a specific bean called random and injected in here instead of creating a new random here. No, you don't ask yourself this question. It's a good question. I created that because every metric that is around an object in Micrometer is a weak reference. Basically, that means that if you are not the one to hold onto the reference will be garbage collected and the metric will die at some point. So if you want to observe, you want to monitor something, you have to put it outside the method and hold onto the reference yourself. Now this is the end of the demo. About metrics, I would like to really enforce that the fact that metrics are not only technical, you can give a lot of insight into your application to the business by providing them business metrics. So this might be a way also to get support from the business to implement that kind of stuff, because in general it's your issue. Monitoring, it's not important for us. But if you want to make them participate, then you can remind them that metrics might be really business metrics. I don't know if we have some time for QA. I'm at the end of my presentation. You can read my weekly blog on Java and Kotlin and Spring Boot and a lot of different stuff. You can follow me on Twitter, and you can find the source code of this presentation at this address if you want to follow it. I have done one commit per step that I've showed you, so you can really see what happens. If you are too shy to ask questions now, or there is not enough time, you can ask questions on Twitter. I will stay here the whole day, and so ping me and I will try to answer. Thank you very much.
So, does anybody have any questions? No?
How do we secure those?
That's a very good question. Most of the things that I've showed you is really sensitive information that you don't want to disclose to anyone. So for the purpose of this demo, of course, I really squeezed all security because I didn't want to have this kind of problem. By default, there is a matrix you can find in the documentation. Some endpoints are secure by default, and you cannot access them if you are not authentified, and some are available. And again, what I showed you is that some of them give more detail if you are authentified or not. So you can use Spring Security if you really want fine-grained configuration. Otherwise, there are a lot of configuration property that you can say, okay, this endpoint, the default is to be secure, I don't want to secure it, or the other way around. Thank you. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicolas.